This happened over a year ago. I'm 30. I was sleeping in my living room on the couch when I suddenly wake up with the feeling that something is wrong. The creepiest part of the story is it was exactly 3 a.m. when I woke up. Not 3:01, but exactly 3 a.m. I instinctively look up at the wall and there is this freakishly big daddy long leg and it looks like it's looking right at me. The thing was bigger than a fucking dinner plate. If I were to guess, it was probably 2 feet from one end of its legs to the other. I jumped off the couch and watched it. It must have noticed I was aware of it because it made a U-turn and started slowly making its way back towards the TV in the corner of the room. It could barely hold itself on the wall, it was so big. It's like it was too big for its own good. Its body was really thick for a daddy long leg. Probably an inch across, which is gigantic for a daddy long leg apparently. This shit was in my house too and I didn't squish it for some stupid reason, so people probably think I'm exaggerating its size, but I watched it for a minute. It climbed back behind the TV and I thought I'll deal with it in the morning. Not like something that big could hide easily. I slept in my room the rest of the night, but I never seen that spider again. I can't imagine where it could have gone because it was so big. I looked up on the internet to see how big they get and I couldn't find a picture of one that was as big as the one I saw. Apparently they only get really big in other parts of the world. I'm in Vacaville, California. In hindsight, because I seen this thing at exactly 3 a.m. and woke up to it looking down on me, I actually consider this paranormal opposed to a cryptic spider, but I think it's an amazing, unbelievable experience regardless. I think of it quite often. Can anyone relate? How the fuck did I get here? Gambling. A never-ending game of high stakes, losing money, and then gaining it back tenfold. The rush, the addictive feeling that dominated my life. Poker, blackjack, any manner of card game, even the slot machines. You name it, I've played it, and learned the skill of counting cards, yet I was in a dangerous situation I could not cheat my way out of. Besides, no one has ever beat the devil himself. This new gang is so powerful, coming up from the shadows, and even hearing of their ruthlessness coupled with rumors of sheer invincibility and the supernatural. So I sought a private game. No gangbanger scared me before. I went up against countless organizations, not losing a finger or my money. This time I was wrong. It took so little effort, there was no resistance. Just one meeting with the boss. He wasn't a very tall man, but with eyes dark and starless, emitting no light. The intimidation tactics were real, no bullshit. That gleam of malice couldn't be faked. Looking for a challenge? A husky voice replied, dripping in rotten honey. I could only nod. You came for fame, glory. Your story isn't special or different. Greed and greatness brought you to me. So what's your pleasure? I couldn't speak, as if my words were taken from me. I was trying to form sentences with a dry mouth. My mouth moved, but no words. Russian roulette is pretty fun, in a high-stakes game. It's obvious you bet with more than money. Lose and you die, like those odds. Already I felt I was in too deep to walk out, but his price was too steep and he clearly never lost. A smart man would never be here, let alone bet more than he could afford. Finally I asked, what's the bet? The thing you give away for free, that corrupt excuse for a soul. The room became shadowed, the lights went out and a sudden breeze filled the space. I fought the urge to run, but I already knew there was no way out. He anticipated my every move. Perceptive, now if you would take a seat. The man gestured to the table with a revolver and 2 chairs. Gulping a breath of air, I willed my limbs to the table, Stumbling forward, I grasped the chair, trying to prepare myself mentally for the horrors to follow. The man sat across from me, his gaze locked on me as he loaded the chamber with one bullet. I don't cheat, and I know your feeble mind needs assurance, but a little trust. Shall we flip a coin to see who goes first? I call heads. It was a statement rather than a question. I would comply with the bear trap already locked around my leg. Terror fueled my mind as the coin flipped, reaching tails. You first, he said sinisterly. I reached for the weapon, sweat dripping from my forehead, wondering if this first click would be my last. Hesitantly I pulled the trigger. It didn't go off. My glimpse of hope was soon stripped away as he fired the gun I passed him. No bullet was discharged. Soon there was only one round left after this one. One last fire, I would die. What's in hell? Finding a voice to inquire about my impending doom. I don't want to ruin the surprise for you. Perhaps instead of counting cards you should have read about my world. The gun once again returned to my hands, shaking once again. I put it to my temple. He would savor my fear and drink my torment before devouring my very soul into a fiery pit. He needed me to walk in and choose my fate. He needed me to forfeit my life. I had no choice but to shoot last anyway. The perfect trap. But this man, the devil, didn't laugh or smile, but looked seriously as I returned the weapon to his hands. He wasn't gloating or mocking my final moments. What was the point? He was about to win. I fell to my knees and pleaded to trade anything else or a rematch. To become a pitiful sobbing creature in the face of death, but I forced back the salt waters and pulled the trigger. Instead of a bullet, a voice rang loud and clear. Daddy, Daddy, how could you? Anything but that. You see, Charles, I don't have to wager your soul to win because it's already my property. Hands flew to my ears to cover the sound of screaming, of chainsaws ripping through flesh. I heard feet dragging on the floor. You end up alone because you can't pay your debts, but you wouldn't face the consequences, so what did you give up? Don't say it, don't fucking say it. I exclaimed in a burst of guilt and rage. You threw your family to the wolves instead of yourself. Your wife cut to ribbons at the hands of a chainsaw and left for dead. That's before witnessing the death of your son. Don't think they didn't suffer greatly, because you know they did. So you can keep your wretched soul, you're already mine. One day a girl in Japan was walking home from school. She walked through the meadows. She walked down the dirt road to her house. She looked at her watch. The train was about to pass the track she was in front of. She then saw a wasp eyeing her, like it was about to strike. She was so naive. She ran away onto the track and tripped. Then she saw the train in front of her and she was brutally ran over and severed in half. Though somehow she was still alive. She looked down to see her sliced torso, drooping blood. Her legs were on the other side of the track, covered in blood. She started crawling away on her upper half. She started becoming a demonic monster, crawling around on its arms stalking prey. One day the now mindless girl turned monster saw a rabbit and darted at it and squished the rabbit through her now jagged teeth and ate it. Then people started disappearing. Then one man survived the creature and reported it. Legends of this creature spread about. When it was going to come into someone's house, it would make a teek-teek sound. One night a woman was traveling and found an empty two-floored home to stay in for the night. And then she was terrified to the sound from downstairs at the door. Teek-teek. Then she heard the creature crawl in. And then she heard something crawling up the steps. The woman courageously walked out and looked around only to see nothing. She figured she was just overtired and hearing things. She plopped into bed. Then the creature's head burst out of the pillow. It crawled out and ate the woman whole.